Over time, I'm confident that we will be able to figure out a meaningful exchange of information between deployers and testers so that system level assessments can provide enough confidence on the performance of the AI application.
This is Privacy on the Ground, where privacy meets real life. People gathered in person this January at a hotel near Singapore's Changi Airport. They came to hear representatives of AI governance, AI hiring, and other software and tech services companies discuss assurance and testing of generative AI systems across multilingual and multicultural contexts. Meanwhile, over on GitHub, a virtual space for open source software development, software engineers contributed to coding changes in tools used for benchmarking and red teaming tests. The tools are used to measure large language model-based applications. Testing can incorporate data sets in several languages: Cantonese, Farsi, Malay, Telugu, and others. Both that in-person interaction and ongoing virtual technical refinements are core to Singapore's AI Verify initiative. I'm Kate Kay, World Privacy Forum's Deputy Director. As other countries have published procedural guidance or more prescriptive regulations for governing AI, Singapore has taken a different approach. The country's media regulatory body, Infocom Media Development Authority, or IMDA, launched AI Verify in 2022. At the time, it was perhaps the most technical approach to AI governance tools from any national government. AI Verify became a not-for-profit foundation wholly owned by IMDA in 2023. All along, the organization has embraced evolution, moving at a speedier clip than most governments to provide practical guidance, technical tools, testing methods, and programs, and uniquely to play the role of community nurturer, fostering and convening a business networking community in the hopes of sparking industry collaboration and learning around AI governance. AI Verify's practical implementation-focused approach to policy is by design and reflective of Singapore's own general brand of governance. In Singapore, the AI Verify website says, the tools of AI governance are not just theorized, but applied, evaluated, and revised. It's an idea that April Chin recognized from her time working in Singapore government before joining AI evaluation company Resaro. Today, she is co-CEO of the company, which has participated extensively in AI Verify projects. I spoke with her in November. She told me she often heard a refrain inside Singapore government: policy is implementation.
Policy is implementation from the perspective that at the end of the day, if you want to govern and lead well, you need to be able to communicate and influence in a way that leads to real outcomes, right? So that's I think the sort of fundamental um, paradigm behind why we always say policy is implementation.
AI Verify has close ties to Singapore's Personal Data Protection Commission. The work of the foundation reflects the Commission's Model AI Governance Framework, a set of implementable guidance for private sector organizations based on 11 governance principles: transparency, explainability, repeatability and reproducibility, safety, security, robustness, fairness, data governance, accountability, human agency and oversight, inclusive growth, and societal and environmental well being. Participation in AI Verify is voluntary, and the AI governance guidance and tools AI Verify produces are intended for voluntary use rather than part of any enforceable requirements. The AI Verify Foundation is led by a governing committee comprised of the IMDA and representatives of AI Verify's premier members, an invite only group of 8 companies. Some might consider AI Verify's building the plane as it flies approach to AI governance to be rushed or risky. Some might question the organization's deep collaboration with industry. Indeed, the approach does have its limitations, which will be discussed here. But no matter what, it's hard to argue that Singapore's AI Verify project is influential and that it offers a real world example of AI governance that is willing to test and iterate, much in the same way that the tech industry itself does. AI Verify is featured in World Privacy Forum's December 2023 report on AI governance tools, Risky Analysis, and we've watched its evolution ever since. Even in those earlier days, it stood out. When AI Verify first launched as an international pilot in 2022, its approach was quite different from much of what we saw from other governments and NGOs at the time. While most others produced various forms of procedural guidance, AI Verify literally developed software tools, things like open source plugin tools for measuring AI robustness, fairness, and explainability. Still, AI Verify is not siloed off. To help ensure standardization and interoperability, the organization has mapped its guidance and frameworks to European, US, and Organization for Economic Development AI governance frameworks, as well as other standards and soft law frameworks, including the Hiroshima Process International Code of Conduct for Organizations Developing Advanced AI Systems. And it's important to note that more broadly, as Singapore steps out into unexplored AI governance terrain, it works alongside other countries. When IMDA published its Model Governance Framework for Agentic AI in January of this year, the authority positioned the early stage living document among its other regional collaborations through its AI Safety Institute and its participation in the ASEAN Working Group on AI Governance. Along with government agencies, Chin and others in the private sector contributed to that agentic AI governance framework. The idea was not to set governance approaches in stone, but to lay a foundation for defining boundaries, identifying risks, and implementing mitigations for this very nascent form of AI. As Chin put it in an IMDA fact sheet, the new model framework gave third-party assessors, quote, clear hooks for stress testing and for designing practical strategies and technical controls. And to come full circle, that living agentic AI guidance from IMDA, it has connections to agentic AI-related efforts and events hosted by AI Verify. Over the years, I've interviewed people inside IMDA and AI Verify Foundation, people helping build and refine its technical tools, and people in other leadership roles. Some told me that they recognized that earlier versions of some AI Verify tools were immature or had limited functionality. They did not work for larger AI models, for example. In earlier days, sources also acknowledged the limits of some explainability and fairness metrics used in those tools. Still, people inside AI Verify told me that little technical changes were being made all the time, and today we can see adjustments being made on GitHub, for example. In general, sources in and around the organization have indicated a shared expectation that the collective knowledge of the growing AI Verify community will steer improvement of their AI governance procedures, guidance, tests, and methods. The rapid shift from algorithmic and machine learning systems to generative AI brought a wave of changes to AI Verify. The foundation has moved from a focus on what it calls traditional AI to producing tools for measuring large language models, testing generative AI systems, and more recently, working on ways to govern agentic AI. As part of World Privacy Forum's ongoing efforts to keep up with AI Verify, I spoke with Shamik Kundu in July 2025, toward the end of his stint as AI Verify Foundation's executive director. At the time, he told me that he believed AI Verify just couldn't develop a testing ecosystem without working with industry, including AI evaluation vendors. It was impossible for AI Verify to know everything there is to know about generative AI testing, he said. AI Verify has made room for industry from the start. The organization was developed in consultation with several large U.S. tech companies and Singapore-based companies. It has since included financial services, healthcare, insurance, manufacturing, and human resources companies, and some of the largest AI developers in various projects. The AI Verify Foundation stresses the importance of industry collaboration in its website's frequently asked questions. We cannot develop AI testing alone, they say. AI Verify needs the collective expertise of both the industry and research communities. Of course, there's often a tug of war between deliberately slower moving, enforcement based approaches to tech and AI governance and faster moving approaches that emphasize industry goals and favor voluntary guidance, self monitoring, and self regulation. Rather than monitoring companies that build or deploy AI or enforcing specific AI regulations, the AI Verify Foundation works with industry to design and assess tools and benchmarks and test them, and has done so at a faster clip than what's typical of many government initiatives. One of AI Verify's most recent efforts, its Global AI Assurance Pilot, illustrated the organization's signature blend of AI governance guide, best practices piloter, and industry peer network, a matchmaking initiative of sorts. The 2025 project was launched by AI Verify and IMDA. They brought together several companies that use Gen AI with companies that offer testing and assessment software or services to conduct Gen AI application testing. Most of those participants are from Singapore, and the rest were based in Canada, France, Germany, Hong Kong, Switzerland, Taiwan, the UK, and the US. The project was a way to move beyond testing of foundation Gen AI models to testing how they're often used today in applications deployed in real-world contextual scenarios, in medical and healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, and more. Kundu, the former AI Verify executive director, he remarked on LinkedIn about the unique community the AI Verify Foundation fostered, particularly through the AI Assurance Pilot. He wrote, quote, "Somewhere down the line, the AI VF ended up as a de facto convener for the fledgling AI testing community," unquote. MSD, the pharma company people in the US know as Merck, was part of that fledgling group. Jason Tamara Widjaja leads the AI research and AI governance team at MSD as executive director of AI. When he and I spoke in August of 2025, he told me that AI Verify helped the multinational company sift through and vet an unwieldy barrage of AI assessment vendors, and meet with peers working locally and internationally.
Much as I'm based in Singapore and I like to, visit offices down the street and so on, the reality is that we are really we prioritize like global things over local things, and we did need like connections into the global AI assurance technical community. So through AI Verify, a lot of it is like peers. We attended a number of the events. We met providers based outside of Singapore, as well as international groups.
The Global AI Assurance Pilot Project also involved Singapore's IMDA Media Authority. Indeed, there are connections between AI Verify's assurance testing trials and government policy. This January, IMDA published a set of voluntary guidelines it called a starter kit that incorporated emerging best practices, benchmarks, and testing methods addressing problems like hallucination, bias in decision making, undesirable content, data leakage, and vulnerability to adversarial prompts, some of which were derived from the assurance pilot use cases. Before we dive deeper into the AI assurance sandbox and pilot, it's worth looking back at key AI Verify projects that led up to it. In general, AI Verify projects have followed the evolution of the AI industry. After launching its AI governance testing framework and toolkit, that automated testing software and plugins for gauging fairness, explainability, and robustness of more traditional forms of machine learning models I told you about, AI Verify in Singapore's IMDA plunged headfirst in 2023 into generative AI assessment. And they did it by introducing a project model they'd repeat in the future. They created a sandbox, or what is essentially a forum, allowing Gen AI model developers, companies deploying those models, and third-party testers to work together to develop and try out evaluation methods and tests. And they also published guidance, a Gen AI evaluation catalog featuring baseline methods and recommendations for large language models. Amid the worldwide whiplash of readily accessible LLMs and generative AI systems, AI Verify took another big step, or perhaps a giant leap, in 2024 with what it called Moonshot. The idea was to test open source benchmark datasets and metrics and test red teaming and adversarial prompting approaches while incorporating an IMDA starter kit for LLM-based app testing. Again, this wasn't just high-level policy guidance, but get your hands dirty technical stuff, like an interface allowing users to choose from a set of benchmarks and data sets to compile for customized cookbooks, things that addressed regional needs and culture, such as classification and analytics tools for testing comprehension abilities of LLMs based on Tamil language, literature, news, and tweets. There's another project around the same time I'd like to draw attention to, the Model AI Governance Framework for Generative AI. It's a document IMDA and AI Verify published in 2024. This Gen AI governance framework proposed 9 dimensions to be addressed to help foster a trusted Gen AI ecosystem: accountability, data, incident reporting, testing and assurance, security, content provenance, safety and alignment research and development, and AI for public good. The framework discussed these dimensions and the methods related to them. For instance, it called on policymakers to articulate how existing personal data laws apply to generative AI. It also noted caveats and limitations of some methods. In its discussion of content provenance, an approach often discussed as a way to distinguish AI-generated content through labels inside images or videos that provide information about how the content was created or modified, the document noted that It may not be feasible for all content creation, editing, or display tools to include content provenance technologies. It suggested, quote, malicious actors will also find ways to circumvent these tools, or worse, use them to create a false sense of authenticity. The privacy and identity implications of content provenance, particularly a method mentioned in that model Gen AI governance framework called C2PA, have been a focus of our work at World Privacy Forum for more than 2 years. If you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to visit worldprivacyforum.org to get our report on privacy, identity, and trust in C2PA, or check out our recent C2PA Explainer podcast series right here in Privacy on the Ground. Okay, on to 2025. The Foundation launched AI Verify 2.0 that year, introducing more modular tool architecture to facilitate easier integration and customization, a more streamlined interface, as well as updates for testing in financial use cases and computer vision. But a splashier project also came last year, another sandbox, that AI assurance sandbox I told you about earlier. The program brought together companies deploying Gen AI and external auditing companies in multiple pilot partnerships. With the project, the AI Verify community aimed to move beyond testing of massive Gen AI foundation models toward assessment of their real-world applications as customized chatbots and other products used at banks, hospitals, airports, and other types of companies. Also last year, AI Verify began dipping toes into the world of agentic AI with an event on testing agentic AI in the real world. At the same time, the organization was still taking in feedback from its community regarding its LLM safety testing guidance. More recently, members of the AI Verify community met at a new AI hub not far from the waterfront along the Singapore Strait to discuss another timely topic, AI-generated coding. So needless to say, AI Verify has come a long way since it launched just around 4 years ago. And its global AI assurance sandbox and pilot project illustrates the Foundation's distinctive approach to AI governance, bringing together policy and procedural guidance, technical tools, and real-world implementation by people in its growing community. Let's dig into the project a bit more. AI Verify had some specific rules for companies involved in the Gen AI assessment pilots. They must involve at least one LLM or multimodal model, one that's in use or set to go live. No proofs of concept allowed. While some AI audits today are mere assessments of procedures and procedural documentation, these had to focus on technical testing and on testing of the Gen AI applications themselves, not the underlying foundation models. When I spoke in 2025 with Shamik Kundu, he argued that enterprises needed to evaluate applications as opposed to assessing the large foundation models they are built with. He referred to this idea of evaluating applications as a blind spot, even for Silicon Valley. Another rule for the assurance pilot: testing must be conducted by an external party, not the one that built or deployed the application. Despite the ground rules, there was some wiggle room. For instance, while MSD participated and partnered with third-party auditing provider Resaro, the pharma company conducted its own assessments and relied on the auditing company for guidance on appropriate benchmarks to use for those assessments. Tamara Widjaja at MSD suggested that AI Verify's non-prescriptive approach to which tests were used was appropriate when it comes to testing custom Gen AI applications. For example, for language translation apps used in distinct settings such as healthcare or legal settings. Rather than providing a select set of tests, AI Verify provided resources, including from its own moonshot guidance, as well as from external organizations, including ML Commons, a consortium of corporations, academic researchers, nonprofits, and government organizations producing benchmarks and tests. AI Verify began partnering with them in 2024. Here's Tamara Widjaja.
Two translation apps. Both of them are doing the same task. If one is in medical, one is in, say, legal, the metrics become different. So, lots of the tests are application specific and hard to scale. So, there's no top-down approach from AI Verify saying you need to do test X. What they did give is they gave some resources. They have their Project Moonshot. And also they linked us up with various groups, like I mentioned, the ML Commons, which is one of the areas that we did eventually look into to get some metrics.
For more detail, look out for our forthcoming episode featuring my in-depth interview with Tamara Widjaja. In addition to its work with MSD for the Assurance pilot, Resaro also paired with financial tech company Tukitaki to evaluate generative AI components of its anti-fraud and anti-money laundering software. For instance, Resaro assessed whether outputs accurately represented reasons for alerts, which the system prioritizes, whether outputs adhered to financial regulations and internal guidelines, and they checked whether the system blocked requests from users trying to gain unauthorized access or personal data. AI Verify published a compendium of assurance pilot case studies, including one about the Tukitaki project. It describes assessment challenges. For instance, inconsistencies meant that comparing generated responses to ground truth data was difficult, and a lack of client production data created difficulties when it came to generating realistic test data sets that represented potential edge cases that the system would need to be able to handle. The case studies, including details about the Tukitaki testing methods, datasets used, and challenges, are available online at aiverifyfoundation.sg. AI Verify's approach is more industry-friendly than some, so while it has its basis in voluntary government policies and guidance, it's not a tool for enforcement or penalties. And that was apparent in one particular way in the AI assurance pilot. Companies deploying Gen AI applications under evaluation were not required to produce assessment reports or information about alterations they may have made to the models as a result of the assessments. April Chin said she supported the idea.
I think the way to then incentivize enterprises, solution providers to come on board was to first focus on the process, not the results, right? And the goal is to build understanding, build shared knowledge and capability around the process of AI assurance, not the documentation of, the results of different AI applications in the industry. And at the end of the day, nobody wants their AI application to perform poorly, right? So I think not having the requirement to submit actual results of the technical test also provides the necessary room for enterprises and solution providers to decide what to do with that information.
Again, though there was a good deal of freedom in the AI assurance initiative, AI Verify did lay down some rules. And one in particular highlights the challenge and possible limitations of assessment of applications. In introducing the project, AI Verify said its AI assurance pilot represented a shift from the safety of foundation models to the reliability of the end-to-end systems, or applications in which they are embedded. That system-level approach is the right one, said Tamara Widjaja.
It is absolutely the approach that needs to happen because to test a model and not test a system is like saying that you drive a car and you test the engine but you don't test the rest of the car. And from the research perspective, the performance of a system is dependent on a lot more things than the model alone. For instance, the moment you connect your model into a data set, a sprawling data set like maybe your hard drive or something like that, the issues become not the performance of the model, but the quality of the data set, how the data set connects to the model. All these things are are not trivial. They're absolutely central to like testing. So we don't need more model tests because to a large extent the model providers themselves incentivized to like tell you how good they are. So they give tests at a model level, but the system level testing is on the system developers themselves, and so that is like the scope you were looking at.
Still, doing a system-level assessment is a different process than inspecting a model. System-level assessments could require access to a company's internal data flows, technical components, and other system components, things that companies operating those systems may be reluctant to expose. Chin suggested that AI deployers and assessors are still tinkering with what components of a system are necessary to access for meaningful assessment. She recognized the concerns that companies have when it comes to exposing their intellectual property during assessment. But she said she has confidence that meaningful assessment is possible at a system level.
I don't think these obstacles are necessarily a reflection of the meaningfulness of the process, right? Meaning that over time, I'm confident that we will be able to figure out a meaningful exchange of information between deployers and testers so that system level assessments can provide enough confidence on the performance of the AI application.
And so that's just a small glimpse at the evolution of Singapore's much-watched AI governance program, AI Verify. I know I'll be keeping an eye out on how it continues to evolve. Maybe now you will too. I'd like to thank April Chin, Jason Tamara Widjaja, Shamik Kundu, and other AI Verify representatives I've spoken to in recent years who helped contribute to this reporting. If you're looking for more detail on AI Verify, there's more coming. Look out for my full interviews with April Chin and Jason Tamara Widjaja coming soon in future episodes of Privacy on the Ground. If you appreciated this talk about AI Verify or learned something valuable from this episode, I hope you'll subscribe to the Privacy on the Ground podcast, maybe give us a good review, and share it with others who'd be interested. I'm Kate Kay. Thanks so much for listening.